Hey everyone, so today's day 2 of area of figures. So what I want you to do really quickly is pause the video, go to your notes, and fill out the area formulas for these 5 figures really quickly. Do it as fast as you can. Okay, so let's write these formulas down. I'm going to start with rectangle. Area of a rectangle, base times height. Area of a parallelogram, base times height. Area of a triangle, 1/2 base times height. If you wrote down base times height divided by 2, that's also correct. Area of a circle, pi r squared. Let's go back to area of a square. So now remember, a square is a rectangle, which does have a base and a height. So we could write down that formula, but then we're not being super specific. So instead of calling this base and height, I'm going to call it side and side because they're exactly the same. And then side times side is the same thing as side squared. Okay, so those are formulas that we should know already. And now let's get to our new formulas. So today we're going to talk about trapezoids. So usually I derive this formula for you and we show where it comes from and it's like, ooh la la, but it's so much easier to understand in person. So instead, I'm just going to give you an idea of why this formula is what it is. So if you look at what a trapezoid is, you can break it down into a rectangle and 2 triangles. So that's why the formula is very similar to a rectangles and triangles. Okay, so if we look at this right here, our formula is going to be very similar to a triangle. There's a triangle right there, but our trapezoid here has more than one base. We know that. This is a base, and this is a base. And then our height is still perpendicular to our bases. So notice you have 2 bases. So what I have to do is I have to change that base to the sum of the bases, and then times the height. So it's 1/2 times the sum of the bases times the height. Okay, so now what we have here is we have mixed review for the entire practice. So we're going to have to say, what is it? Which it's already labeled, so I guess that's not really a question. But find the area of the figure, so what's the formula? And then if it's necessary, we will be rounding to the nearest tenth for all of these. Okay, parallelogram. First, pause the video, write down your formula, and try to do it on your own. Then you can check your answer. Parallelogram, base times height. Area equals, I need my base, I need my height. All right, my base, I can see right here, is 14. My height is not drawn in. I have to draw it in myself. That's x, my unknown. How am I going to find my height? SOHCAHTOA. So here's my angle. This is opposite. This is hypotenuse, so I'm going to use sine. Sine of 53 degrees is equal to opposite x over hypotenuse 12. Solving for a missing side, so cross multiply. We get x equals 12 times the sine of 53 degrees. So my height, 12 times the sine of 53 degrees. Go ahead and pause the video and type that in your calculator. All right, you should have gotten, let me see what I wrote down here, 134.2, and then my unit, centimeters squared. All right, the next one, this is a trapezoid. I'm going to write down my area formula. Area equals 1/2 of the sum of the 2 bases times the height. You can also put the height in parentheses because it's multiplication there. Area equals 1/2 times the sum of my 2 bases times my height. All right, my 2 bases. Do I have my 2 bases? One of the bases, the other base. So yes, I do. 22 and 43. Now I need my height. Do I have the line that's perpendicular to them? No, so I need to draw it in. Call it x. Go ahead and solve for x. Sine once again. Sine of 23 equals x over 13. Cross multiply to solve for x. You get x equals 13 times the sine of 23. All right, go ahead and try putting that in your calculator. Make sure you put parentheses around 22 plus 43. You get area is 165.1 feet squared. Okay, go ahead and pause the video and do D on your own. I know I'm doing it in a different order, but I figured, hey, this is a nice easy one. Area equals pi times my radius squared. Area equals, this one we can leave exact, 36 pi centimeters squared. All right, let's go back to C here. C is our triangle. Area equals 1/2 base times height. Area equals 1/2 my base, which is 6, times my height. Base is 6. I need my height. Height's not drawn in, so I'm going to draw it in. Okay, here's my height right here. Now there are a couple ways to get this height. So if I asked you, how long is this piece right here? Hopefully you would say 3. Now the reason I know it's 3 inches is because this is an equilateral triangle, and the altitude that I just dropped also is a median. This right here is 6 inches, and then I can use Pythagorean theorem to find x. X squared plus 3 squared equals 6 squared. X squared plus 9 equals 36. X squared equals 27, square root. Once again, you don't have to simplify the square root of 27. I'm just going to put square root of 27 right here because I'm going to end up putting it in my calculator. I get area is equal to 15.6 inches squared. Another way you could have done this is that you could have said this angle is 60 degrees, and you know that because this is an an equilateral triangle. You could have used SOHCAHTOA to get x, or you could have used the fact that it was a 30, 60, 90 triangle. That would make this 3 root 3, my bad, 3 root 3, which is the same thing as root 27. So a few different ways to do that one. All right, 2 more problems, and this one practice will be done. Graph your points. Connect these 3 points. Notice it's a triangle. Area equals 1/2 base times height. I need the base and I need the height. I'm looking for a vertical or a horizontal piece for my base. I see a vertical piece, so that's going to be my base there. I can count it right now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now I need my height. Remember, my height is perpendicular to this, and now I'm looking for a horizontal, right? So I can go to any point and then see how high that triangle would be. So if you turn your iPad, you can see that that can be considered the height, or you can go from this point right here and drop it to your base. But notice those have the same length. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So my height is 6, my base is 8. Therefore, I get my area is 24 units squared. Okay, the very last one. -4, 0, -2, +4, 4, 1, 2, -3. All right, we have a rectangle. Area equals base times height. Area equals, leave a space for base, leave a space for height. All right, so I'm looking for a vertical or a horizontal line. don't have one. So I can see, though, that this line and this line are vertical and horizontal they're perpendicular to each other, but they're not, in my perspective, vertical and horizontal, unless I turn my iPad. So I'm going to highlight one here in green, one here in purple. And let's start with finding that green length right there. So what I can do is that I can turn this into a right triangle and use Pythagorean theorem to find that height. Let's try to get a color here. There we go. All right, this is 3. This is 6. Pythagorean theorem to get that height, which I'll call x. Notice it's the hypotenuse I'm looking for. 3 squared plus 6 squared equals x squared. 9 plus 36 is equal to x squared. 45 is equal to x squared. Square root both sides. I get x is equal to root 45. So my base, root 45. Last but not least, I need my height. Make that into a right triangle. This is 2, this is 4. I'll call that y. 2 squared plus 4 squared equals y squared. 4 plus 16 equals y squared. 20 equals y squared. And I get root 20. Go ahead and try putting that in your calculator to make sure you're getting the same answer as I'm getting. Remember, if you have a parentheses that opens here, you have to close it. If you type it correctly, you should have 30 units squared. Once again, if you're having issues